Hello guys, it is me again, it's HorrorFan34, and welcome back to another video. I figured this would be a response video to a really great friend of mine, Rob, also known as MovieReviewTime. And I know he did a couple parts for this kind of topic, and I'm going to do multiple parts of this series of videos. So all these, like, if I upload like a part 2 or part 3 or things like that of this series of videos, these are all response videos basically to Rob, because this was his idea to do this. And basically it's showing some movies that you think are underrated movies. And I figured, you know what, that's a pretty good video. I might as well do a response to it. So whatever, like, no matter, I mean, I don't know how many parts I'll do of this series, but basically all of these will be responses to Rob's video, to part 1 and part 2 videos that he did. Because I can list many, many movies that I think are very underrated. So I figured for each part I do, I'm going to do 10 movies for each part. So that way it gives it a little bit of a balance. You know, 10 movies in this part, 10 movies in this part, and so on. So I picked out the first 10 movies here that I think are very underrated, and I hope you guys enjoy my picks. So let's get on to the first 10 here that I have. Of course, the number one underrated movie for me, and for me personally, is a film that I talked about many times before. I know Rob mentioned this, and he gave me a shout out in one of the videos when he, in one of those underrated movies videos that he did, and he brought this movie up and he gave me a shout out, so thank you very much for that. And it had to have been my number one underrated movie as well, Judgment Night. I've talked about this film before. I reviewed this film already. I know I reviewed the film already, and I also have the film on Blu-ray as well, but this is easily my favorite film of all time, and it's, in my opinion, the most underrated movie ever. So easily this had to have been my number one underrated movie. Love Judgment Night. Number 2, the top 2 are like the 2 most underrated movies in my opinion for me. This one I also reviewed along with Judgment Night, but I had to mention it again. Survive the Night. Basically, you take the plot of Judgment Night and you put females as the leads. It's pretty cool. Made for TV. This was actually made before Judgment Night, because I think this was released on the USA Network, I believe. And I think this aired on USA in January of '93, while Judgment Night was released in October of '93. So maybe Judgment Night was inspired by this, or I don't know. Like, who knows? But I know this DVD is really expensive and very out of print, really hard to find. I was lucky to get this as a birthday gift many years ago when it was cheaper. I think my buddy got this for like $15 or something like that, so it was really, really cheap back then. If you ever find this for a decent price, highly recommend you check this out. Want to see more of my details about what I thought of the film? Go check out my review, because I reviewed this and Judgment Night both on the channel, so had to mention those 2 first. Now all these other ones are just random ones, like this is like the 3rd most underrated, 4th most underrated. Those I just mentioned, those are like my top 2 most underrated movies for me. Now we're getting on to other ones that I feel are underrated. Uncommon Valor. One of the most underrated war, I think the most underrated war, or one of the most underrated war films. It's I'd probably say my 2nd favorite war film behind Casualties of War. Really fantastic cast in this. Gene Hackman, Fred Ward, Reb Brown, Randall Tex Cobb, a young Patrick Swayze, Robert Stack. Directed by the same guy that did First Blood, did this film. And it's just a really great Vietnam story where Gene Hackman's son was missing in Vietnam, and he goes back with some of his son's old team to try to find his son and things like that. Has a really great mixture of drama, humor, action, a lot of really good stuff in this, and it's easily one of the most underrated movies. Has a beautiful song at the very end called Brothers in the Night by Ray Kennedy. And everybody's standing tall. You know, really great heartfelt song at the end. Love Uncommon Valor. I want to review this at some point. Next one here that I feel is underrated. I've mentioned this film a couple times before, but Meet the Feebles. I think this is easily my favorite Peter Jackson movie. I mean, this is the Peter Jackson that I really enjoy. I enjoy the Peter Jackson of Bad Taste, Dead Alive, Meet the Feebles, The Frighteners, and things like that. I was never really much of a Lord of the Rings guy. I've seen the Lord of the Rings movies before, and I think they're really good movies, but I was never really one of those big, like, fanboys of Lord of the Rings. I never went crazy about Lord of the Rings. I know my buddy Rob is more of a Lord of the Rings guy than me, but I think they're good movies. But I think my favorite era of Peter Jackson's movies is when he was making movies like this. Easily my favorite Peter Jackson film. It's this is one of the reasons why I didn't really care for the Happy Time Murders, because it made me go back and think of Meet the Feebles. Because Meet the Feebles is a really intriguing idea where it's all done through puppetry, no humans whatsoever. And it's basically, if the Muppets were raunchy and R-rated, that's pretty much what this movie is. It's a really out there movie. I mean, give this a whirl. If you want to see a really weird film by Peter Jackson, easily check this out. I really enjoyed Meet the Feebles. The Adventures of Ford Fairlane. Really great fun comedy action film with Andrew Dice Clay. Directed by Rennie Harlan, who basically, I think they hired him because of Elm Street 4, because Elm Street 4 around this time was, or at the time was, the highest grossing Elm Street film. So they got Rennie Harlan, who also the same year had Die Hard 2. But I think this movie is hilarious. It's a really great parody on like action movies. They do like all the action cliches with the explosions. You have the bad guy that never dies, played by Robert Englund. It's just a really great cast of people. Andrew Dice Clay, Wayne Newton's the villain. You also have Priscilla Presley, Morris Day from Morris Day at the Time, Robert Englund, Ed O'Neill, Al Bundy from Married with Children. He has a really funny part in the movie. You also have people like Gilbert Gottfried in the movie, and Tone Locke's in the movie as well. Really great movie. A really great fun comedy with Andrew Dice Clay. Really enjoyed this one. End of Days. This is a film I've talked about many times before. My favorite Arnold film, because I feel it's the most underrated movie. It got crapped on a lot when it came out. I know it flopped at the box office. I don't understand why it flopped. I love the whole idea of Arnold being in a horror movie where he takes on the devil. And you have Gabriel Byrne as the devil. Gabriel Byrne's a load of fun to watch. You also have people like Kevin Pollak, Robin Tunney, Rod Steiger, and of course, I had this signed by Robin Tunney at Monster Mania. Really nice lady when I met her. Directed by Peter Hyams, guy who I really enjoy as a director. Stay Tuned with John Ritter, Sudden Death and Time Cop are two of my favorite Van Damme films. Running Scared with Billy Crystal, The Relic, The Presidio with Sean Connery and Mark Harmon. But End of Days is my favorite Peter Hyams film and my favorite Arnold film. I love End of Days. Criminally underrated. I See You. I think, in my opinion, it's one of Stallone's most underrated movies. Now, the one thing about this film, the editing is a little wonky in some areas, I think because you have the wrong director, Jim Gillespie, who did I Know What You Did Last Summer. I feel like this film kind of feels more like a thing that like David Fincher would have done, or something like that, like that kind of a director. But other than some really weird editing troubles that I see, like little wonky editing, this film is really well done. Stallone gives an underrated performance. This and Cobra were the two of the closest things that Stallone got to do being in a horror movie. And the cast is really phenomenal. Not only do you have Stallone, but you have people like Tom Berenger, Charles Dutton, Sean Patrick Flannery, Dina Meyer, Robert Patrick, Robert Prosky, Courtney B. Vance, Chris Christopherson. But I See You is a underrated Stallone film. I'd probably say it's in my top 10 Stallone films, to be honest. I love I See You. Criminally underrated Stallone film. And speaking of Arnold, another one of his films that I feel is underrated, The Running Man. The Running Man didn't really do that well when it came out. I don't understand why it didn't do well. This is easily one of my personal favorite Arnold films. It would be in my top 5. It'll be up there with Total Recall, End of Days, Commando, Predator. It's definitely in the top 10, but easily the top 5. But The Running Man is a lot of fun. A lot of great other people in the cast, like Maria Gachita Alonso, Richard Dawson, Yaphet Kotto. Directed by Paul Michael Glaser from the Starsky and Hutch TV show. But The Running Man is a lot of fun. It's a very entertaining movie. It's one of my favorite films from the 80s. It's one of my favorite Arnold films. Just a load of fun to watch. Love The Running Man. This one I showed in my birthday update, but I do feel it's an underrated comedy. Amazon Women on the Moon. Easily, probably my favorite comedy anthology. We're in like the vein of like Kentucky Fried Movie, and later on you had movies like Inappropriate Comedy and Movie 43, which I have a rant video saved because I actually did a little mini marathon that I haven't uploaded yet, where I did like a couple of comedy anthology reviews of movies. Like I did like a little marathon. I reviewed a couple of comedy anthologies. I pre-recorded reviews for the Kentucky Fried Movie, this movie, and a big round Movie 43. It's in a couple parts because I have to go through all the skits just to warn people what they're in for if they ever watch that. It's to save your sanity. But Amazon Women on the Moon is without a doubt my favorite comedy anthology. Really a lot of fun stuff, really great cast. I'll talk about this more when I upload that review that I did of this film, so easily one of the underrated ones. And the last one that I'm going to show for part 1 is my favorite collaboration with these two guys in it, Richard Pryor and Gene Wilder. See No Evil, Hear No Evil. It's my favorite film with both of them in it. It's my favorite Gene Wilder film and Richard Pryor movie. It's really funny. One guy's deaf, one guy's blind. There's a murder. They get accused of it, and they have to prove their innocence and go after the bad guys. One of them is Kevin Spacey. Directed by Arthur Hiller, who did Silver Streak with Gene Wilder and Richard Pryor. And I think he did the original Out of Towners with Jack Lemmon, I believe. But really fun comedy. I want to review this at one point if I ever do like a Richard Pryor marathon. But really fun comedy. So that is pretty much it for this part, for part 1. So thanks a lot for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Alright guys, take care.